The definitive conversation that I want to speak to today is a story kind of played out in three different parts. Like any great thing in our life, it's preceded by a vision, a representation of something to come, and we don't really realize it until later. For me, that vision or that thing was a guy named Andre Tremblay. Now, Andre Tremblay was the president of Fido back when Fido started in the 90s, and I joined Fido in the late 90s. And it was the most exciting and the most exhilarating part of my career. We were, busting down the walls, doing really, really crazy stuff. 400 minutes for $40, that was a deal back in 1996. Flying blimps across the country and doing other really exciting stuff. And it was all tied together by Andre. This is the first experience in my life where I'd actually worked with a leader of a big company that close. So I'd never really had that experience in my life. He was an amazing man. He was fun. He was shy, but he was engaging. He was the kind of person that you wanted to be around. And you didn't know where you were going necessarily because it was a company that really didn't know where it was going, but no matter which corner you went around, you knew that you wanted to go with him. He cared about people, and he made every step of that journey really, really enjoyable. He had this ability to communicate with ease, to make people feel comfortable, to communicate vision and objectives and important stuff in a way that you really remembered. But he was also just a total blast to be around and the kind of person that you wanted to spend time with. He led a life that I was jealous of. He led a life that made me feel like I wanted to be that kind of person. Fundamentally, he led a life that mattered. But I just didn't know it at the time. And then fast forward to my conversation. My conversation happened in 2006. It was with Stuart Emery, who's an author and executive coach. It happened in San Francisco in 2006. There were about 500 other people there who had paid $900 to be part of that conversation. So yeah, I was at a conference. But it felt like a conversation because it really was sorry, it's a bit cheesy. It did feel like a personal conversation. And it was the most definitive moment of my career in terms of understanding where I wanted to move my life. He spoke about an approach to leadership, an approach to the work world that was founded in leading a life that matters. He spoke about leaders who led their lives in ways that teams would want to emulate, not just the way that they worked, but the people that they were. And that's when my thoughts of Andre started to flood back to me, and this is where it all started to make sense to me. Stuart Emery spoke to my life. He spoke to my journeys, my mistakes, my passions. He spoke to how I could find the leader within me, and by expressing it not through my career, but through my life. And not just at work, but in every single day. He spoke about the benefit of having this thing he called a portfolio of passions, which was this real constraint in my life at this point where, he was saying there was a positive to not be a master of anything, but be a lover of all things. To have a rich set of interests and things that you cared about in your life was a benefit, and that ultimately that would be one of the most important things you would bring to your career, because then you would lead a life that matters and people would want to follow and be with you. I used to see this as an enormous constraint in my life, how I was like good at a bunch of stuff and really, really good at absolutely nothing. And then all of a sudden this was like this freeing experience that I could have that really set my creativity free and made me feel much better about the person that I was. And he also said that being a great leader and to be a good person, that a common bond of those people is that they have the strongest grasp of their own faults, their own flaws, their own challenges, and their own fears. I literally broke out in a sweat during this conversation that he was having with me because all of those things came upon me. And it took me a long time to kind of settle over those and really understand what my constraints and my fears were, and carry them with me as I do today, but to embrace those as being fundamental to what I am. So I guess my big message is this, don't think ever of as your career as being the forcing function of your life. Your life is what should guide your career. If you lead a great life, if you lead a life that matters, your career will follow. Everything else will follow along. I've taken that to heart as I've moved through. I've become a master of absolutely nothing, still in my 47th year, and will continue to do so, be very happy doing so. And so no matter what juncture you're at in your career, if you're not thinking about your life first, then your career is not going to know where it's supposed to go. Thank you.